Let's get a good one here. Good morning, everybody. Good to see all of you guys. If this is your first time, if this is your first time here at Hill City, my name is John Wagler. I'm part of this team, and grateful that you're here. Hope that this becomes a place you can call home, and just thankful that you're spending a part of your Sunday here with us. We've got a couple of things going on that are really significant here in our church community. One of them is our share offering. So we've been doing this. We didn't do it our first year, but we've been doing it every year since our first year. We had no money to give away, so that's why we didn't do it then. But since that point, every single year we've been doing this. And what we do is we ask everyone to be involved. Whatever level that is for you is up to you. We make a suggestion of one day's wage as one way to think about it. But what we do is we take all the money that comes in, and then we have all these partners that we work with throughout the city that are doing mostly work here locally. There are some that are doing work internationally. And then we take all that money and then we just bless them, whatever money comes in, and we help them reach tens of thousands of people in total. And we have this incredible impact. It just shows the love of Christ, but it shows the impact we want to have as a church. But it's such a huge benefit for the good of our city and for the good of the gospel. And so we are doing that now. We're going to keep it open for a couple more weeks. I made a mistake, y'all. I jumped the gun. I said we were going to announce it on Mother's Day, the total, and I forgot that we keep it open a little bit longer than that. And so it's going to be open for a couple more weeks. But the way that you give to that is you can scan the QR code that's in front of you, and it's pretty self-explanatory. From there, you'll see in the drop-down menu for the share offering. So that is open live right now. Would love for everyone to be a part of that. This series, For the Good of Richmond, is a really big deal. I love every series that we do, but this one in particular has been one that's been on my heart for a little while. And as we started putting things together around it, I really do believe that this series is one of those kind of spiritual benchmarks for us as a community of what it's leading us into. And today's a really big day for us as we talk about some really big future things. Last week we started with a vision, and this week we're going to continue on this idea of vision, but for us as a community here together about what is here and what is the option and the opportunity that we have here to be a blessing to our neighborhood. But first I want to start off with our reading for today. So if you are able, we'd love for you to stand. We're going to be in Matthew 6. And it says this, that the eye is a lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and what? There we go. Amen? You can be seated. So we're talking about what today? Yeah, I'm sure you guys are stoked. And so if you're new here today, let me just say this. What I want you to take away from this is the heart of our church, the heart of our community, the heart of what Jesus has for your life, as well as all of ours that call ourselves followers of Jesus. If you're just trying to figure out this whole Jesus thing, I want you to see what your life is supposed to be and the fullness of it and what it can lead to and the impact it can actually have. If Hill City is your home, you know that we talk about being irrationally generous, and this is a core value of who we are as a church community. And so this idea of being generous, this reality is at the heart of who we are as a church, and you cannot separate generosity and the gospel. It is not possible. Even at the inherent truth of what we believe, that Jesus died and that he rose again for the forgiveness of our sin, this is the ultimate generous act. The idea that God is love from the beginning, that he created, allowed us to be a part of this, is the ultimate generous act. So you cannot separate generosity and the reality of who God is. And so generosity is something that is pivotal to us as Christians, but is often something that we want to stiff arm. But this idea of having a legacy, this idea of having this incredible impact of what it could be and what it could mean for our city, for the good of Richmond, is really what we want to focus on here this morning. When I was thinking about some of the places we've been that has such incredible impact, one of the first places I thought about was this one, the Vatican. How many guys have ever been there? Yeah, it's amazing, right? The architecture is insane. The whole kind of presence of the place is so cool. And when you go in there, you 1A should be just in awe of the beauty of it, but B, it's also overwhelming when you think about the millions and millions of people that have gone through there throughout the years that have had their faith shaped by some part of it. Now, I don't think when they were designing it and putting and building it and everything, they were like, man, in 2025, can you imagine? But the legacy that has happened throughout it, the way it's helped shape certain things, it's just incredible. We went to another cathedral in London, which we sat in on one of the services there, and I was overwhelmed with just, again, the thought of over generations and generations and generations, how many people have been through this cathedral, how they have seen the beauty. And what I love about cathedrals, that's not present in our building, but what I love about cathedrals is the specific attention to detail and the creativity around the architecture, because it is meant to draw our hearts and our minds to the wonder and beauty of God. That the idea of creativity is through that. And so when you look at a stained glass window, when you look at the ornateness of a cathedral, or you see the little details, and this one here, they had a window at the top that when the sun would set, that the light from, as darkness was coming in, the sun would come in and the light from the sunlight would shine through and hit the cross, just as a reminder, as darkness was coming, there's still light on the cross. And so it's like just these little things that are just so beautiful inside of it, that it orients our hearts and our minds towards the reality of who God is this beautiful, creative being. And it's like so amazing. But again, I was just overwhelmed by the fact of like, thousands, if not millions and millions of people have been in that cathedral, and God's done something in their hearts. They didn't know that when they built it. It's just like, man, it was something about being a pillar in this community. It was something about being at the center point in this community to the beauty of who Jesus is. And then there's this place we went to in Kenya, the exact opposite. We were there with Compassion International, and we got to see, as people were so generous towards funding these kids in the school development, and there's a church that always happens when Compassion does stuff. And so they had this church that was there too. And you're blown away by the hospitality that's there, the experience that they want you to have, the care of their own space. It's not ornate. There was no architect involved. There was no like giving campaign. There was no anything. It was just like, this is who we are, but man, if you're in our space, we want you to know the reality, the joy of Jesus. We want you to know that we're being hospitable to you because of the love of Christ that we have inside of you. We want to take care of you as our guests. And it was like incredible. So they had this full spectrum of like incredible design and architecture. It took tons of money to build and time they could put up that hut in a day. And it's like we got to experience both of these things, but the commonality in those things were generosity of the community and a heart to be a pillar of their neighborhood. That there was some bigger story that was happening to help just transform the community that they were involved in. When I took a step back and started thinking about that, and for us in this series, I wrote down this line. And we have an opportunity to create a legacy that far outlives every single one of us. I don't know, I know there are a bunch of students in the room, and I don't know who the youngest person in this room is. Maybe there's a baby somewhere. And I don't know who the oldest one is. But we have this opportunity in this next season for us as a church to start thinking about it in this way. That we can have a legacy that far outlives us. That goes far beyond anything we could have ever imagined. That just goes, like the story that gets told is like far greater than just our own kind of personal story within it. Even when I think about my own life, like I'm the product of people's prayers. I'm the product, and so are you. Like you're sitting here today, like you are the product of someone's prayer, someone's idea. Someone's like, man, I hope someday they come to know Jesus. It might have come down in your line in a way that you never knew. Like my great-grandparents, like I met them, but they have no idea what's happening. Well, I don't know how heaven works. I don't know. But they have no idea. I don't know how it all works. But they have no idea what I'm doing right now. They don't understand, like they don't know. My grandparents, who I did know pretty well, but they did not experience me as a pastor. They did not know like this part of my life. They saw a whole different phase of my life. But man, my grandmother and my grandfather, they prayed for me like crazy. about what God could actually do in my life. And so they had no idea, and it was a product of their prayers. And so there's something bigger that can far outlive us, that we might not ever know, but we have to have the heart, the willingness to step into it, to see it, to know that we can be part of something so beautiful, that we can be a part of something that's a pillar in our community. Because like, we've done a great job so far in the last decade, and seen thousands of people come through this building, and so many, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people come to know the reality and truth of who Jesus is in their lives, and have transformed, and we've given millions of dollars away, and there's so much to celebrate. But I'm telling you that there's something so much greater that's in front of us, if we're willing to step into it and see it. To have the heart to want to be like, no, we're moving in this direction, but I want to lift my eyes and see something far bigger that can go far beyond my own perspective, and far beyond what I could possibly see or possibly could ever imagine. That I could start praying for people that we've never known, never stepped into this building yet, but imagining them in this space, and seeing like, oh, that coworker and that friend and that family member. It's like people like never even dreamed of coming into this place, like to have that kind of vision of what could be. I know when we start talking about generosity, there's also like different people's experiences. Some of you guys, like I see a bunch of teenagers over here, you guys might be thinking, I don't have any money. And so that might be true. You might be an adult being like, I don't have any money. And that might be true. And you might be like living life that way. Or maybe you had a bad experience, and you grew up in a church that manipulated it. It was for selfish gain, or they had a bad heart around it, or they wouldn't like be honest about what they were doing with the money. Or maybe you grew up in an environment where there's like, if you just give, you'll get. Meaning like, give $1, you get 10 back. And it's like, that is not how this works, right? Like we have like literally thousands of years of evidence. That's not how it works. But there's something that I just want you to know on the top, is like, we want you to like fully trust where you go to church. And so when you give, like if you have a question where any money goes, just ask and we'll tell you. Like we'll show you the receipts, we'll show you what it looks like in our books. Like we have an open book policy. So we want you to like fully trust. Like we give, Lacey and I, like our family, we give a lot of money back to this church. We want to fully trust like where our money is going and what we're doing with it as a community. And so we want you to do that. So if you ever have any questions, like please ask. We want you to feel so good about where you're giving and where you're generous to. And so again, if you're new here, you're good. Just listen, okay? Like I hope this becomes your church community, but we want you to know how we want to be trustworthy in this. So when Jesus is talking to these people in the passage that we read, he's talking to a bunch of people that say they want to follow him. And so he's referencing this idea of what generosity actually is. And the first thing that Jesus wants us to know is simply this, that he wants us to have healthy vision. He wants us to have healthy vision. He wants us, when he's talking about vision, he's like, how do you see the world? Like, what lens do you view the world? What's going on inside of your heart? Back then, there's an idiom where a healthy eye meant, do you see the world with the idea of abundance, with the idea of generosity? An unhealthy eye would be that you see the world through scarcity, that you just need to take. And so Jesus is tapping in here, and he's like, hey, if you want to actually see the world the way I see it, then you've got to be generous. You got to see the world through an abundance mindset. You got to see God as a provider in all of this. If you want to see the world the way that you should see the world, so that your body is full of light, then you got to engage it in the right way and have the right heart and have a generous mindset around all that you do. How many of you guys have received a gift before? Yeah. Can you imagine if you're at your next birthday, someone comes to you and they're presenting you with a gift and you just like snatch it out of their hands and you just take it, right? And you're like, you better have. Like that's like and that's your mindset, right? Now, maybe when you were little, you did do that. But you just take it and you're like, yes, like that's why I gave you that list. So you would do this very thing, right? Because you deserved it, right? And so what is that though? That's a scarcity mindset. When we receive a gift with humility, when we receive the gift, understanding, wow, this gift giver gave me something so beautiful and thoughtful. It's like when our posture is in the right way, then we see the gift properly. And so we see it with light. When Jesus is talking about it, he's like, hey, if you get into the scarcity mindset and you're not a generous person, and you don't see your life as being generous, what ends up happening is the light that you think is inside of you is actually darkness. And how dark that is. And so you can't actually experience the fullness of life. You can't actually experience the fullness of what Jesus has for us until we step into a place of generosity. And so I don't care how young or old you are. Like, you start now, wherever you are. Like, you start with good principles. You start being like, no, what does it mean for me to be generous with what I have? And you begin to build off of it, and you start seeing yourself in light of like, oh, what an incredible opportunity, because wow, what a gift I have received from the Father. The forgiveness I've received from Jesus up on that cross. Through his death and resurrection, the life I've now received through that reality. It changes our entire perspective. Even when we see this idea of money, if we were to go around, sometimes I've heard people say stuff like this. I give 10% back to God, and then I use the other 90% for myself. My response all the time is like, that's not how this works. 100% is God's. 100% is God's. You are just a steward. I am just a steward of what God has given me. And so my responsibility is like, I want to see all of this through the way God wants me to see it. And process it in that same way. And so that I'm just a steward in all of this because it all belongs to God because he is my provider. The writer in Hebrews says it this way. It says, keep your lives free of the love of money. How many of you guys like money? Everyone should raise your hand. Like, no one should be like, no, I don't like money. Like, you've got to live and you like to buy certain things, and so it's okay. It's okay. It wasn't a trap. But it's like what he's saying is like, we shouldn't love money. What we need to do is actually be what? With what you have. Because God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. So we say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. So whatever you want to throw at me, world, it's okay, because the Lord is my helper. Whatever comes at me, whatever transpires in this world around me, you know what? It's okay, because God will provide. How does God provide sometimes, or most of the time? He provides through the generosity of his people to others. When we're set up in this way, when we orient our lives in this way. And so it's like, man, this is our posture. This is how we begin to see the world around us. Jesus teaches so much about money. He actually doesn't see it as a neutral thing. Sometimes we look at money, it's like it's a neutral thing. Jesus doesn't see it that way. You could argue maybe some of the other writers in Scripture do, but Jesus doesn't see it that way. He doesn't see money as neutral. There's something spiritual. That's why he says you can't serve both God and money. Another translation would say God and mammon, which was the spiritual being. And so it's like you can't, money isn't just this neutral thing. It plays on us in some kind of way. And so God's like, Jesus is like, you can't serve both God and money. And here's what he's saying. If you have a healthy eye, then what's inside of you is light, and you will serve God through it and have the proper view of money. If you have an unhealthy eye, what will happen is there will be darkness inside of you, and you can't fully serve God even the way you think you desire, because what's inside of you is darkness is actually oriented towards money. And so he's like, you've got to be able to start seeing this properly. And so what Jesus teaches about it, he teaches about money like in his parables about 50% of the time. In his total teachings, it's about 25%. And so it means something to him. And so one of the questions I was thinking about this week, because Jesus prioritizes so much, but he says, but what about this? What happens in our life when Jesus prioritizes something and we don't? So here's Jesus prioritizing this so much. But what happens when we don't prioritize it? Like, what would happen if, like, all of our students in our ministries were, like, so generous at their schools? What would happen? What would happen with you at work? What would happen with you at home? What would happen if you started seeing this community in this neighborhood in that kind of way, where we're just oriented, like, oh, no, Jesus prioritizes this so much. Like, it's a really big deal, so I need to as well. We know that, like, I was like, hey, Jesus prioritizes being honest with your words. What's the opposite of being honest with your words? Lying, right? So it's like, If we don't pay attention to what Jesus says about our yes being yes and being honest with our words, like our relationships suffer. So yeah, Jesus is like, hey, we got to prioritize truth. We got to prioritize like how we love people. Great, like I want to do that. Yes, let's talk about it. But man, we don't actually do that with our money. We don't prioritize it in the same kind of way. And my guess is when we don't prioritize the things of Jesus, we fracture so much communally. We fracture so much personally. We're not living the fullness of life that is actually, that we have the opportunity to participate in. Jesus also teaches at another point, he's talking about people bringing their money, their offering up to the altar. And he's like, hey, I would actually need you to actually leave the money there for a second. If you have unforgiveness in your heart, go forgive that person first, then come back with your generosity. So even with generosity right now, part of it might be like you have a bad relationship with money. Part of it might be you have a bad plan. Part of it might be your experience growing up and you're taught wrong, or you had a really bad, you have kind of your trauma around it or whatever. Part of it also might be you have unforgiveness in your heart that won't allow you to be generous. And the reason is when we have unforgiveness in our heart, we cannot actually see people properly. And so we can't fully be generous. And so maybe that's it. So if you don't find yourself as a generous person, if you don't have the receipts of your generosity, there's something there that's preventing you from experiencing the fullness of life that Jesus has for you and having that kind of impact and legacy that you allow to see far beyond your years. One of the other questions that I wrote down this week was this: in Christian circles, why does greed get ignored more than any other sin? How many of you guys in your small groups or your discipleship groups or your community groups or your friend grouping, if you're a Christian, how many of you guys have sat around and asked each other what percentage they gave away last year? But shouldn't we? It's an honest question. Shouldn't we? Like if Jesus talks about in his parables 50% of the time, shouldn't we be like to our closest friends? I'm not telling everyone. I'm not saying like as you come in like that we're like, hey, where are you at? And like, 2%, man. I just didn't, like whatever. Can you imagine? And you might be thinking to yourself, well, we're not supposed to broadcast our deeds. I'm like, you're misreading that whole entire passage. What you're not supposed to do is like be boastful about who you are. But when it talks about being accountable, that's a whole other thing. Can you imagine if every single Christian held another Christian responsible and accountable for their generosity? What would begin to transpire? Maybe. Maybe we should. Maybe we're missing out. Let me ask you this. Is the good life, the full life, based off of generosity or greed? You can answer. It's like the easiest question you're going to answer today. Generosity. So why in the world do we orient our lives to be stingy, to live in scarcity, to avoid being generous and coming up with a plan? It doesn't make any sense when we know the fullness of life is on the other side of it. If you've ever been the recipient of generosity, you know the beauty of it. You know it. And so it changes everything. The second thing is that we're invited into a bigger story. We're invited into a bigger story. I love this graphic here. These are all little thumbnails of all the stories that we've been showing. There are 35 of them over the last, 8 months, 9 months, whatever it's been. And we have more stories coming. These are just a glimpse of like all the stories in our community. And but I was thinking about all of our stories this week. In these 35 stories, I think only one of them was a person who was here day one. And so all the other stories were a result of 21 people who gathered together to pray and to be generous of what could be. And we had no idea when we gathered in another part of this building and we would pray and we would try and figure out like what would transpire in this church. We had no idea. We had no idea. We were just like, hey, we're just going to give to this. We're going to be committed to it. We're going to be just open to what God could do, and we're just going to see. And I was thinking about just reflecting on these 35. Now, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of more stories, actually thousands over the years, that have been like impacted by this church community. We had no idea that that was going to be the result. But man, through a heart of generosity and a grouping of people, man, God did this wonderful work through the posture that people had. That there was something bigger that's going on, something that goes far beyond us. But even in the 21 of us, we didn't like come up with the idea of prayer. We didn't originate the idea of the church. We didn't nothing about it. Well, we are the result of other people's prayers. You are the result, again, of other people's prayers. I'm the result of other people's prayers. There's a larger story that's transpiring. Even in this building, we did not build it, design it, thank God. We did not have anything to do with this building. Like in 1998, this building became an organization called U-Turn through the heart and generosity of this man named Paul Manning, another guy named Tom Tuning, and another guy, Bobby Ukrop, and a few others that were surrounding him in prayer, and they had this heart for athletes to come to know Jesus. And that they could serve the community through this ability to be like, hey, let's create something where we could have athletes come in, share the gospel with them, then they go out into their schools, they go out eventually into college, some of them went out to play them professionally, and they had this like beautiful thing that was happening. And they had this heart of incredible generosity to actually make it happen through millions of dollars, through a couple of people that actually made this whole thing go. That they had a vision that went far beyond what was right in front of them, but could see something far greater. And so they stepped in and they did it. Now, it didn't go as well as they wanted to, like over the decades that ended up happening. And then here's what happened. Because of their generosity, and as things kind of died down here, but because of their heart, their prayer, their generosity, the idea of to do something that would far outlive them, this little church plant called Hill City came in here in 2014. They had no vision, no concept, no idea that in 2025, about 3,000 people would roast through here on Easter. They would not have any idea about the hundreds of stories and the amount of people that would come to know the reality and truth of Jesus. That was not part of their plan, but their heart was oriented towards generosity, and God did something beautiful through it. That's part of, like, we are on the shoulders of them and their heart and their posture towards this reality because of like who they wanted to be and what they wanted to see in this community. When we think about generosity and we think about it in this space, it reminds me of 1 Timothy 6. It says, but godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into this world and we can take nothing out of it. How many of you guys have brought garbage bags full of things to a thrift store? Yeah, it's okay. And we've all done it, right? Because at one point in time we thought, I love this. This will look good on me. Yes, this will, whatever. This little tchotchke will be great for my home. Whatever. And you think those things, and then all of a sudden, like today's like thing that you love is tomorrow's junk. And so I'm not saying you can't buy nice things. I'm not saying you can't have, I'm not saying any of that stuff. But what I am saying is we have to understand the reality of how we live. We have to understand, am I putting myself in a place where I can lead to contentment? Am I living my life in such a way that, no, generosity is how I orient my life, and I live through that lens? Yes, you can still buy those shoes, that outfit, or something for your house, or you go on a nice trip, whatever. But it's like, how do we begin to think about this? Or the reality, even how you think about your money and how you spend it and how you have a plan for it. All of our behaviors are built on a sea of what we believe. And so if what you, think about how you use your money right now. There's a belief behind that behavior of what you do with it. And you have to come to grips about what that belief is, like what you actually believe about your money. You might believe it's all yours. You might believe that you can dictate what all you can do. You can, whatever, but there is a belief there, and you have to come to grips with whatever that belief is. And does that belief match up with what Jesus taught? It's a question you have to ask. And you have to think about it in this way. If someone in here won $10 million tomorrow, how many of you guys would be excited? That's okay. You can be excited, okay? Does your first thought go to what I'm going to buy, and what's for me, and materialism? Or is it about what I could do with it to further God's kingdom? I'm not saying, like, don't go on a nice trip. Go. Take us with you. Like, whatever. Like, that's all great. That's all great. But I'm like, but is your heart, what is your heart oriented towards within it? Or what it could be? I love Andy Stanley down in North Point in Atlanta. He has this thing that he's used for years. He says, the typical American Christian sets their life up this way. Spend, save, give, which equals me, others, and you can't find a Bible verse that goes along with that. And it's like, why in the world do we set our lives up in such a way that actually goes against what Jesus taught? And so I want us to think about that a little differently. So how do we give? One, we give spontaneously. That is wonderful. We should all do it. It's like that kind of classic little one-off thing that you really love to do. And it's like you see a need, you meet a need. The share offering is spontaneous giving. Like, I don't care if you're giving $1, if you're giving $10,000 or whatever you're giving. It's a spontaneous act in it that's like, oh, that's cool. It's like this one thing that I get to be a part of. Spontaneous giving is great. It doesn't mean you're generous. It just means you spontaneously gave something. Okay? And so, but to be generous means you have to have a plan. You have to have like a lifestyle around it. And so there's a way that we begin to think about it. And so you have a plan for your money. You have a plan for how you're generous. For us as a family, Lacey and I have been married for 24 years in June. We started at, over 21 years ago. We were like, hey, we start at 10%. We have a goal of like, hopefully someday being able to give away 50%. And we want to increase our percentage of giving every single year of our lives. And we step into that. We step into that because we're like, God has given us, and we have the right posture and a generous heart. Listen, have there been tough times where we weren't sure how we were going to make it through the year? And the answer is without a doubt. Several years. I'm not saying just one time. There were several years of that stuff. And watching to see how God provided. Sometimes it was through other people in our church community. Sometimes it was through family. Sometimes it was through people who are just like, hey, I thought you might want this or need this. And it's like through incredible generosity, we were able to make it. But we're actually positioning ourselves to always be generous. And we're like, that's the posture that we always want to have. And then you can have a passionate, heart level thing that you're like, this is my sacrificial giving thing. I've got a plan on what I give. And again, like if you're part of this is your Hill City community, like you should want to give to it. You should want to have a plan of what it looks like to give to it. Like these are your people. We help each other out. We have this impact together. And so that we should choose a percentage, build off of that. And then we should have like passion things that we do that are like, oh, this grips my heart and I want to give to this and sacrificially give to this. And that's part of what it looks like to give as well. Now, why does all of this matter? Because we are in, again, like an incredibly exciting moment for our church of what could be. This idea of what this space is and what the opportunity is for us in this community to be a pillar, to have a legacy that far outlives us. This picture here, right here, is Staples Mill and Broad. What this is about $650 million of development that's about to happen around us in the next couple of years. Our building is right somewhere in that area. We got about $650 million of development that's about to happen, which brings that specific property is hundreds of apartments and some other restaurants and some other things that will be happening within it. There'll be some office space and stuff there too. There's another property that's near us that is about 150, 200 yards from us, where there's going to be another 150 to $200 million worth of development. Right off the back of our building are going to be 280 apartments that are going up in the next few years. About 500 yards from us, two more properties just got bought up, which is another several hundred worth of apartments. My point is that within the next decade, we are literally going to be in the middle of a neighborhood where people can just walk and be, and like this is what they're a part of. And we have an opportunity right now in this moment to create a space that isn't A, an eyesore for the community, but B is like a place, a place for people to gather, and a place for thousands of people to come to tell a different story. Like we have an opportunity to do that. We're being invited into something pretty incredible. Now, you might be coming from a line of thought that like buildings don't matter and that spaces don't matter, but no one actually believes that. You don't. You don't believe that about your car, about your house, about your room, you don't actually believe that. Spaces matter. Spaces actually matter to God. The space of the garden mattered to God when he built it. The idea of the instructions he gave to the temple and to the tabernacle deeply mattered, so much so that about 12 chapters of the book of Exodus are literally dedicated to what fabric and what jewels they're going to use and what things are going to be, what the temple began to look like. So spaces matter and hospitality matters. We see that throughout all of Scripture. When they go to the upper room, he's sending them to a space. When they have houses and when they have churches and people's homes, they were sending them to a space. We have details of people creating spaces in their homes in the early church because the spaces matter and the spaces matter for us. So the building matters. Now the mission's far bigger than the building, but the building does matter. It's a part of it. And so if you guys have been here, you know certain things about our building. It doesn't look great from the corner. That's why I said this, if you were at the vision meetings, we had 6 vision meetings about what is transpiring. And I said, why do we have such a great parking lot team? It's because to distract you from what is actually in front of you when you're walking in. And so we want there to be so we're not, visually it's okay. All right, and so we're not doing anything big, but we just want to make it so it's okay, and that it's respecting our neighbors, and that it's not an eyesore to them. When you walked into here, some of you may have tripped over the wave in the flooring, right? It's a funny little quirky thing about our building until you see someone fall. And then and there are things that happen. If you're sitting over there, my guess is you either run hot or you don't know that there's an air tunnel, a wind tunnel coming from the air conditioning over there. While you guys, it's 7 degrees hotter over here. And so there are things about our building. Are they a big deal? Some stuff's a big deal if you've been to our bathrooms, but but it's not, there's some stuff that it's fine, whatever. And we're never gonna try and have this thing that wows people. Look at what we built. That's not the point. But we do want to take care of people. And we do want to be hospitable. We do want to have a space that we're proud of, that we can invite people into and people can want to hang out in, and that we get to be a part of that together. So what is the building? The building is a launching point to serve the city. The building's a mechanism to share the gospel and show the love of Jesus. The building's a place to show hospitality and love for our city. The building's a way for us to kill loneliness. The building's an investment into eternity. The building's a way to impact people that will outlive us. The building's a way for us to tell an alternative story to the culture around us. The building's creating a sacred space and as a conduit for wonder, transformation, and truth about God's love for all of us. The building should be and needs to be a blessing for the city. But it doesn't just stop there. The building for what could be, the vision for what could be, is about creating more space for our kids upstairs. We've got 350 plus kids coming on a Sunday, and our church is growing. And we need more space. We have a day school that is actually going to be moving here by the end of the year, that is currently in a different facility that has 100 kids in it with 100 plus on the wait list. And we want to expand that and grow that and serve our community. We've got college students that are part of our community, middle and high school students. We create better spaces for them because the next generation is so dang important, and we've got to put everything we can into it. We've got space and the ability to actually create more room for families with disabilities, because a lot of people don't think about that, but we can with our space. We have the ability to have an event space, a coffee shop, a place where really we could be a center and a hub for cultural topics and thoughtful engagement that is different than what people see around them. We have an incredible sports opportunity with a lot of athletes throughout our city. Right now, during the week, there are hundreds and hundreds of kids that come here daily. If there's a tournament, it's thousands of kids. But how do we actually connect that to the original vision of this building and the heart of Paul and Tom and Bobby that wanted to see Jesus be attached to the sports movement that's happening in our city? We have the ability to do all of those things. We have the ability to have events here for businesses and connect people and network and help people network and understand. We have ability to do all the things and step into those things. We have the ability to create a church building that isn't just about a Sunday, that the actual heart of what a church building should be is every day during the week being a blessing to the place and the neighborhood that they're around. And so we have the ability to do that. We have the ability, y'all, to create revenue. So it isn't just about, like, honestly, the more generous we are, the higher revenue that we can actually have in our building. And so it's like, man, we have this ability to have this incredible impact. Some of you guys have been to the Vision Nights and have heard a lot of this. But here's the heart I want us to have. Like, I love the phrase, leave it on the field. And I love that when my coaches would say it. We had one coach who would talk about it at U of R, and I just love that thought of like, man, like we used to talk about this all the time, especially my senior year of college, and we'd be like, when we step off this field, we want to be able to say, like, we left it all on the field. Well, guess what? Like, in this life, I'm like, I want to do the same thing. Whenever my time's up, whenever that is, hopefully 50 years from now. But like, I want to be able to say I left it all on the field. Yeah. When we think about this church and this building, I'm like, we left it all on the field, y'all. Like it's like, man, this thing's gonna go far beyond us. But look at the opportunity that we have. Here's a little picture of the front. I don't have a lot of pictures, but this is just like, I want you to see what the front would look like for just a different feel. And to the building, like all the upstairs rooms all the kids' rooms are getting windows, and we're gonna renovate all those spaces up there to make it a better family experience and kids' experiences. And then eventually we'll get into this space and really great spaces to hang out in. All of that is dependent on our generosity, and we are for sure doing the kids' areas, and we're for sure doing a little makeover on the outside. But how we respond and how we get into this is critical. It's important of how we engage. I don't have a ton of pictures because guess what? I didn't want to do anything slick. And I didn't want anything manipulative. I just wanted you to just have the heart in the right spot of like, this is what we do. Like, we're an irrationally generous church. This is how we engage, and we want to actually lift our eyes and see what could be. That there's something beautiful that's in front of us, and we want to orient our lives in this direction. We'll post videos, and we'll do some actually podcast content this week to answer some kind of typical questions that are asked. And then maybe post some other things too along the way. If you have questions, feel free to email them in to info@hillcityrva.com, and happy to respond to all of those. But where's the gap? This is the gap. So almost a couple years ago, we bought the building for $3 million. And we're like, hey, we would love to raise $3 million in 3 years. And so we're at $2.2 million actually, a year and a half in, which is really great. But we have this incredible opportunity. There is a gap. There's about an $8 million gap from what we could do to set ourselves up for this building to have some longevity, but also to have an incredible impact. And so in the scheme of things, is $8 million a lot? Of course. Anything with illion at the end of it is a lot. And so I don't, listen, that's a real thing. But in the scheme of things, we have tried to pare this down so that what we want to do in this space matches our heart as a community, and we're not trying to do something that goes beyond who we are. Is it a vision that is beyond our current resources? And the answer is yes. But we should want that and desire that. And so we need God to be a part of it. And so we're just asking everyone to be involved. We don't want it built off the heroics of a few. We want everyone to be involved. And so it could be a big role. It could be a small role. If you're someone recently said to me, hey, I've stopped going to Starbucks. I went there 7 days a week. And so I've taken that money and I'm putting it towards the building. And I was like, that's amazing. We've had students do some things. It's amazing. And so you might be in a spot where I've got $1 million burning in my pocket. It's amazing. That's all great. It's whatever. But whatever it is, here's the ask. You can scan the QR code in front of you and it takes you to a pledge. The pledge, and you'll see it. I'm not asking you to do it right now. The pledge matters. The pledge matters to the banks because when they see how much people have pledged, that's how they build what kind of money they would give us. So your pledge really, really matters. Even if you already pledged before, please re-up on that and just send it back in because we need to show that to the bank. It's a really big deal. But I really do want you to pray about it. You might be ready right now. That might be you and nope, I know what I'm going to do and here's my pledge. But I really do want you to pray about it, about how to be involved, about how to have a plan, about how to be committed to this. to do something that far outlives us. This is such an exciting thing, you guys. Not everyone gets to do this. Not everyone gets to participate in this way, to have this kind of influence, this kind of impact. Like, it's a gift. Like, God is like, y'all, here's like a pretty cool responsibility that's on your shoulders to do something that's really neat for this neighborhood. And that's what I want us to do, embrace this. So I want you to pray about it. And we'll follow up, and we'll put stuff out there in text and email in different ways. But this is like the opportunity that we have. Amen? Let's pray. First and foremost, God, I thank you for who you are, your heart of love, your heart of people. I'm grateful for the mission you have for the church, capital C church, and for our church, to show people the love of Christ, to be the kind of community that becomes the answers to some people's deepest prayer needs through our generosity, to have an impact that far outlives us. God, I do believe that the miracle for all of this is actually in this house. That together we can come together and do something really special, to tell a wonderful story about the amount of money we give away through the share offering, to the space we're trying to create to help kill loneliness in the city, and to point people towards your love, your grace, your forgiveness, so they too can experience the fullness of life. So God, I pray that our hearts will be oriented towards you through all of this, and that a beautiful story is going to continue to be written through your Hill City community. We love you and thank you. In your name we pray. Everyone said, amen. If you want prayer, there'll be people on either side of the stage. Otherwise, have a great rest of your Sunday. Love you all. See you next week.